Hello, hello! Welcome to Module 5. I'm glad you guys are here. Let me tell you about a few little changes starting in Module 5. So if you've noticed, if you've walked into Module 5, you have seen now there's like a quiz. So yes, we are putting a quiz in, which basically we're going to give you all the answers as we go through this video, but we noticed from Module 3 and going to Module 4, the number of people watching the videos is declining. So we've added a quiz that kind of forces you to watch the video. We actually give you all the answers to the quiz in the video, so please make sure that you take some notes. Some things are going to seem really random. It's going to be a quiz question, so keep that in mind. So when you hear something random, write down the answer so that way you have it. All the answers, again, are in the video. Make sure you listen. We try to give you as much information as possible. So as you click in and you get over here, this is actually the quiz. This is the way it'll look. You'll answer the questions and you'll move on. You do have to get a 4 for 4 on it to continue and to go on into the module. So there is a lockout. Please don't send us hate mail. We know it, but we need you guys to watch the video so you learn and kind of go through what we need you to think about this. So moving forward, this week it is all about your pilot. Now you are getting ready to kick this in gear. You're going to implement your solution and you're going to create some change in the world, which is really exciting. And we are very excited for you. But I want to make sure that you understand the difference between a prototype and a pilot because they are two different things. They're kind of hand in hand, but they are two different things. So for a prototype, we did that last semester. Your prototype was quick. It was simple. It was maybe a couple of days. You took something small, you tried it, you threw it in the marketplace to see what your audience felt or your customers felt about it, and they gave you feedback. So the cool thing is you took that feedback, you updated your solution. So now in the pilot phase, it's a much longer kind of a session. Most of them last a couple weeks or a couple months. It is a pilot, so it is still kind of a test. So you're still going to refine at the end, but now you're implementing something and really looking, does it work in a long-term kind of scenario. So keep that in mind. You are piloting now. And as we keep going into this, I'm going to scroll down. This video will land here as well, but let's talk about some of the objectives of this week. So I'm going to throw it over to Patrick so he can talk about the objectives, and then we'll keep moving.
Thanks, Dr. J. So this week, you guys, you're going to finalize the logistics to begin piloting your project. So you're really thinking about all the operational needs of your pilot, thinking about the people power, for example, the meetings that you're going to need to have, the kind of materials that you're going to need, thinking through all those pieces that are going to eliminate friction later on down the line. Then you're going to be exploring some marketing strategies for your project, really kind of surface level stuff here. Your organizations that you're with already probably have some marketing materials. If they don't, this would be a wonderful time for you to practice those marketing materials, newsletters, social media, those types of things. When I say social media, I mean, be very careful, ask permission about that kind of stuff first. But really the big one is to consider how you'll collect data throughout the implementation phase and then monitor and adjust as needed. And monitoring and adjusting is super important because if we find that we get all the way to the end of this pilot and we have not done any adjustment throughout because we have not collected any data, we might be going in a completely different direction than our organization wants us to go. So we have to be willing to adapt. We have to be willing to pivot and make some changes throughout the process. I'd rather you do that early than have to do that later on down the line and go, oh my gosh, I've committed to all these things and what am I going to do? So I think the most important thing to understand is that with data collection and with monitoring and adjusting is that you have to be able to tell a story. And the most effective way to tell a story and using data to reinforce your work. Your organizations really love your passion. They love your desire for change and the lines of effort that you're really working on. But I think it's really important too that they see numbers. They need to see charts. They need to see graphs. They need to see tangible things that they can then take and then use to justify your time, their time, the money, the resources that they have in order to move your work forward. So in order to tell a story, you have to collect data.
Data is really important. I want you to think about that again. And one other thing that I want you to think about in this last couple of weeks, we've talked to several students that have brought up a couple of interesting points where their organizations are thinking about things differently and they're asking them to do things. I want you to spend some time really this week listening and not necessarily talking. So sometimes we got to stop talking and listen so we can hear what our organizations want and need. If you are not listening, keep this in mind. The solution that you're creating may be one-sided and maybe leaning more towards what you need versus what your organization needs. So if that happens, think a couple months down the road, is your organization going to keep using the solution that you came up with, or did you fix something that they didn't necessarily consider broken? So keep that in mind. Keep listening and keep thinking, but also make sure that you're involving them. And remember, you're a guest in the organization. So really think about what do they need and not necessarily what you need. And if you have questions about that, please reach out to us. We are here to help you kind of talk about that. So this week you have 3 assignments. So it's the internship time card, it's the human-centered design activity, your pilot, and then you have under general activities, you have your yellow dig peer discussion. So make sure that you're on top of those. We are going to spend some time right now talking about that, preparing to pilot, which is really important. So again, as you jump in, make sure you read through this. There is a wonderful rubric down here that's kind of detailed, but I want to go in and really walk through the template with you. So for this template, we're shifting gears a little bit. So instead of those steps that we always have, like we have step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, this week we've shifted from steps and now we're looking at kind of 4 different sections. So as you're looking at this, you may look at logistics first, or you may look at pre-work. You want to definitely start with pre-work, but it is broken down. After you finish pre-work, then there's logistics, and they're in yellow, there's strategy. After strategy, you're going to look at, more ideas for evaluation. We know that you went through evaluation last week, but more evaluation tips for this week. And then looking at stay in the moment is your last piece. So let's kind of talk about this in detail. So again, we're shifting from steps into sections, and there's 4. So you don't have to necessarily do these in order. After you do pre-work, you can tackle the last 3 on your own in the order that you want to. So it doesn't have to be step 1, step 2. No, there's sections depending on where you are with your particular pilot. But I do want to make sure that you go in and you look at your readings, because your readings are truly important. So we've opened the readings tab here for you so you can see it. But there are quite a few readings. Don't forget there's the Community of Health, or the Center for Community Health and Development. That's a tongue twister when you're trying to say it quick. There are several really good readings from them, as well as one from IDEO that really walks you through the piloting piece. But spend some time reading this. We've noticed recently that some of you have not added very much in this section. And if you don't add much, the problem that we see is your template and the way you're implementing doesn't necessarily work because you don't have the background to do it. So make sure that you are reading. Patrick, do you want to add something on that one? Because I know we talked about it earlier.
The thing I want to add here is, folks, you're writing in narrative format. Remember, this is a 400 level class. And while this doesn't necessarily have a writing designation to it or a literacy designation to it, we still expect a certain amount of academic level writing here. So narrative format, not bulleted format. These aren't your notes. This isn't a worksheet. This needs to be, you need to tell a complete picture of your understanding of the readings. And then you need to give us a clear picture of what you're working on, how you're doing it. Think who, what, when, where, and why for each section, and think I don't want to give word counts, but just really detailed, because the more detail we get, the better it's going to be for us to say, okay, this person's really doing a good job. They're really getting it.
All of the stuff that you're reading applies to what you're doing. So the more you read, the better your organization will be able to implement, and the more you're going to be able to implement your project, because you're going to get insight from some of these other readings of what other people have done. So keep that in mind. So as we kind of walk through this, I just want to kind of point out a few things. Under logistics, you really need to think about, do you need additional staff? Who's going to help man your particular solution? Are there things that you haven't thought about? Like, as you start walking through this, really sit down with your team and ask, how do we do this? Like, if you're talking about recruiting more people, or if you're implementing a curriculum, how is that going to work? Who needs to be there? How do you make sure you have enough people? The other thing is, have you reserved the space? Like, I know we're doing a project virtually, but we have schools that are going to be doing this as an after-school program. Is there space for this? So how are those schools going to, where are they going to be located? How will that work? So make sure that you have your space. Also, your supplies and materials. we cracked up a couple years ago because somebody was doing a project, it was an art project. They had all these wonderful art supplies, but they forgot paintbrushes. So, and it was like, oh, you have them. No, you have them. Well, write down exactly who has the supplies, where they are, and make sure they're in a bin so that way everything's all together. The next piece was strategy. Think about your competition. Like we keep on the mindset of the art program that we did. There was an art program that came into that same school that parents had to pay for. So again, that was our competition for some of them, but then we looked at the projects they were doing. So we didn't want to conflict with what they were doing, but we wanted to show the value for what we were able to do. So think about what is the competition. Think about your audience, your population, your customers. Who are they and how do you plan through making sure everything's going to work? Again, Patrick talked about messaging and marketing, so keep that in mind. Social media is the key to a lot of different organizations, but for some organizations, they don't like social media. So what other ways can be used? Some people use flyers, some people use bulletin boards, some people still use like business card pieces. So how are you going to do that? All right, a couple more things to think about underneath your evaluation. If you're looking at a pretest and you're getting ready to implement, have you done your pretest yet? What data do you have? And then what is your ongoing analysis? I always like to, when I'm in a situation where I'm putting something together, I like having a notebook so I can keep notes every day about how did I feel going in. And as I'm doing a lesson, how did that lesson work? So my own facts of my own opinion of what I feel happened. But at the same time, think about, can you do some sort of analysis each day? If you're doing something like with kids or you're doing something on an ongoing basis, can you do a little quick check-in with kids or with adults every day to see what they're feeling? So after each session, some sort of analysis so you can see day by day what's happening. So spend some time going through this. Go ahead. What was that?
Formative assessment.
Yes. Formative assessments. They're the key. And the other thing that I think that I have a hard time with is I'm always thinking about the next step. Like even in the moment that I'm doing something, I'm thinking about what's coming next. And I don't think I value what's happening in that particular moment and in that time. So I really want you to be aware and not think so much of, okay, we've talked about this, we're going to talk about this next, and oh, then there's this. I want you to be right where you are. So spend some time writing it out so you're not worried, but just, bring it down and just relax and take a moment to see what's happening, to watch what's happening in your surroundings. So keep that in mind. Patrick, what else do you have to add on this one?
Nothing. I have nothing else to add on this one. Just please write in narrative format.
Narrative format, lots of detail. So as we keep moving, so again, the rubric is there. The template is right here. Make sure you fill them out. Reach out to us if you have questions because we have office hours and a few people have shown up. We are so glad that you've shown up, but others need to come. Please come, please come. As we also have a Yellow Dig conversation, so make sure you're talking in Yellow Dig. And then, of course, the last thing that you have to do is you have to do your timesheet. So your timesheet is very, very important. So let's talk about the quiz for a moment because we've answered 2 of the questions already. So if you haven't heard them, 2 of them have already been answered. Now, for the last part, since we're coming to the end, the last part is, what are our favorite colors? So, Patrick, what is your favorite color?
My favorite color is Air Force Blue, Dr. J.
I knew it. I knew it. So if you guys have read anything about our bios or if you thought about the bios, Patrick's was kind of a giveaway because he was in the Air Force and Air Force Blue would probably be his favorite color. Mine might be a little bit harder. My favorite color is purple. So it is in there. It is the first one. I love purple, but I don't think I've worn purple in any of our videos. We will wear purple next week. But please let us know if you have questions. So the answer to the color question is Patrick's favorite color is Air Force Blue. My favorite color is purple. And the other 2 questions, they were answered previously. One, just to give you a little quick hint, one is on this page, pretty obvious. On this page, the first one was when Patrick talked the first time. So if you missed it, go back and listen. Hope you have a great week. We look forward to seeing you. See you later.